topics for our March session. Grateful for y'all to be here live as always. The purpose of our hot topics is to expose some of our specialists here in the area. Jeff Shorgen with A&R. Courtney, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Courtney Schmidt, Ag and Natural Resources in Miami County.
So we're happy to put this on. We always love our return customers, and then those of you who this is your first time, we're glad to have you. Today we've got Dr. Clayton Slaughter, who is one of our partners that we use for our Master Gardener basic training. He has a wealth of knowledge in fruit trees. Courtney, since he was your speaker, did you want to introduce him? For those of you who are new, please keep your we would like to keep your microphones muted, and then any questions you guys have, chuck them in the chat box, and then we'll get to those if we have time at the end. But we want to make sure that Clay has all the time he needs. So, Courtney, if you want to introduce, we'll go from there.
All right. So we have Clay Slaughter today, who is a master gardener for Monroe County, and he is like got 100 degrees. I'm not sure what they all are. I know he's an attorney. I know he's got some really advanced, maybe biology, something like that. Just a lot. He's got two orchards, one in Monroe County and one up in Converse, Indiana. And so, wealth of knowledge, excellent teacher, and I'm sure he'll tell you about all of his operations. So, I'm going to go ahead and let Clay take over.
Sure. Thanks, Courtney and Jeff. It's great to be here today. Clay Slaughter. Courtney, my undergrad is in genetic biology. Then I went to law school and then got a PhD in education and then came full circle back around to ag, which is where I started. It's a long, crooked road to get to where I am.
I knew
Uh,
it was very, very smart. Something that
oh,
sounded
thank you.
really smart.
Today, we get to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is fruit trees. So, obviously, we've got two orchards. We've got one in Bloomington, where we grow bitter sharps and bittersweet apples. And then we've got our larger orchard in Howard County, outside of Converse, Indiana, where we grow culinary and dessert fruit. So, as Jeff and Courtney said, if you've got questions, by all means, put them in the chat. We should have some time at the end to walk through some questions and answer those. Today, what we're going to walk through are probably the most pressing things that you've got right now for March in Indiana with fruit tree care. And it's pretty informal, so I do want to answer the questions as we go along. But we're going to talk about spring stages. That's one of the things we think about a lot right now is where are we in terms of the tree and moving into the growing season. We're going to talk about some frost temp concerns. That's one of the big things we always talk about at this time of the year is, are we too far along? Have we exposed ourselves to some frost damage? Then we'll talk a little bit about pruning, and then we'll spend a little bit of time on selection, ordering, layout, planting of trees. Those all go together. And spraying. More of those last two bullet points are going to be some FAQs to answer the things that we get asked the most in those categories, because each one of these categories could be a day-long talk on their own. So good to keep moving here. We're going to talk about where we are for spring stages. So let's do this. So I want to show you some things about where we are in Bloomington to give you the really hot topic current to where we are and where we are here in Howard County. So for those of you that do a lot of gardening, you may know that we are a half a grow zone apart. We are 6A in one and 6B in the other. For practical purposes, by mid-year, that puts us somewhere in the 2 week, 10 days to 2 weeks apart in terms of our grow zone. Right now, we do see a little bit of difference in where we are for grow zone. Those are apple tree buds that you're looking at there, and both of these are here in Howard County. So if you look at the picture on the left, you're going to see the scales on the end, the tip of the branch that are still together. They do have some white fuzz on there. We're moving towards silver tip. and you're going to see that those scales are still pretty tight and they're together. If you look at the picture on the right, that has gotten fuzzy. So we're moving from, in technical terms, from full dormancy of the tree into the endo and ectodormancy stages. So the tree is waking up. We have sap flow. It may not be moving quickly, but we are moving to that stage. So it's going to go from the one on the left to the one on the right. These are both of these trees are only a few rows apart here at the orchard. I took them yesterday, these pictures yesterday evening. To give you a real-time idea of where we are. So clearly sap is flowing, trees are waking up, but we're not in a real situation where we're going to have a lot of frost damage here, or risk of frost damage yet, because we're forecasted for, I think, a low of 16 one night and a low of 13 for the other. Not concerned yet, but we are watching things as they move along. So give you an idea, these are Bloomington. So you can see here, both of them have started to get that silver fuzz on the end of them. Trees are clearly waking up. But those plates that cover the bud are still firmly together. And this is what our average bud placement looks like in Bloomington. But these are both in Bloomington, and this is our average. A little further along, I'm going to show you another picture here in just a second. Talk about it for a minute. All right. So in the picture on the left, which is Bloomington, you just saw that. Contrast that with the picture on the right. Both of these are taken in Bloomington. We do have two different locations about 4 miles apart. And the one on the right is taken at the orchard that is furthest ahead by leaps and bounds. It is always ahead of both the second location in Bloomington and the Howard County location, and that is green tip. Actually, that's probably 1/4 inch green. It is only one variety that's there, so we'll talk a little bit about that here in just a second. But you can see here the spread in where we are. Coming out of dormancy on the left, 1/4 inch green on the right, and that's where we start to get concerned. We'll probably get some loss from the one on the right, and here in the upcoming weeks, we'll probably see some loss on that variety because it will get cold enough that it will frost. The variety is a big factor in where we are right now as we see them coming out. We've got some that are appear to be fully dormant still with these warm days. I mean, it was 80 degrees in Bloomington, and we've got some, as you can see, that's an Ashmead's kernel that's on the right, and it's 1/4 inch green. The one on the left is a Benet Rouge, which is a cider apple from France, used predominantly for making apple brandy. So we've got a lot of variety, a lot of things going on there. I can't see the chat, Courtney or Jeff. I'm going to stop here for just a second because this is what I get the most questions about at this time of the year. And I want to make sure that if people have questions about what they're looking at, that I'm answering them.
Chat
So while I wait.
looks clean, Clay. Everything looks
Okay.
good. You're doing good work, and yeah, because I know we have quite a few concerns, not just with apple trees, because we know we have that frost insurance. During the spring, I've got to throw in a pitch for the peonies and all those other spring bloomers. A lot of people worry about those. Yeah, the apple trees, you guys, I like your comment where you're not worried about it right now, but there may be some, concern in the future.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have some concern here as we move forward. To put it in perspective, so that everybody's got an idea of what we're concerned about. A few years back, we had a late frost, and that frost was on April 24th. So you figure about how far we are away from April 24th, and we've got a lot of days coming up where we've got some liability here, some risk, especially for that bud that's on the right. 1/4 inch green at this point, we're probably going to lose those. I mean, that's sort of what I expect, is that we'll have some nights that are cold enough that we're going to lose it. When we think about that, we think about 30 minutes at a killing temperature. That's how long. So that's one of the questions I get a lot. So how long does it have to be cold? 30 minutes at a killing temperature, and you're going to get some loss. And we talk about that loss in terms of 10% loss, 90% loss. And I'll show you a chart here in just a minute and give you a source that you can go to look at those. So that's where we are. So that's the first step, is a snapshot in time of where we are, so that you can see that. I'm going to see if I can go backwards. So there is the average for Bloomington. And that's a big thing to understand, is that you want to look at the average of your orchard. If you've got a lot of trees, if you've got only a few trees, you want to think about, where are my specific trees? And those vary by varieties. We'll go back to this one. Here, if I had both of these in my orchard, I would be treating them differently. I would be concerned about them differently, because they bloom and sort of wake up, come out of dormancy at a different time. So for us, because we've got 2,700 trees, we're thinking about it from terms of an average. Where's the orchard on average? Because we can't handle management of the orchard from an individual tree perspective. So then if you come back here, this is where we are. The larger the two orchards, things are still pretty much in a protected state here. I'm not worried about where we are, but we are paying attention that it's waking up. The other thing that I want to point out about these two pictures is that they are from separate locations in Bloomington, about 4 miles apart. And that is a big deal with microclimate. So just because you're in a place where the USDA grow zone says this is what's going to happen, this is my plug for keeping a gardening journal, an orcharding journal, keep track of what you're doing, because you could be planted someplace and your trees are on the south side of your house and they're shielded from the wind. And when it got to 80 degrees in Bloomington, that tree was waking up. It's saying there's no wind, there's no chill, it's warm, I'm going to wake up. And that's going to put you at a much higher risk of loss, because that tree is going to wake up too soon. Or your tree could be out away from the house. It could be someplace where there's constant wind. It could be in a cold spot in the bottom of a valley where you've got a heat sink and it gets cool down there, and your tree could look like the one on the left. So microclimate is a big deal. Variety is a big deal. Think about those. And that's part of what we'll talk about when we plant, is that if we're going to plant trees, we need to think about, what does it look like where we're going to put them? Is it going to be cold here? Is it going to be warm here? And do we need to plant things that tend to hold on a little later and bloom later, wake up, come out of dormancy later? Or are we okay to plant something that maybe we're pushing the envelope a little bit to grow in Indiana, and we know that we're going to get a little bit of loss because they tend to wake up early and then they get zapped by some late frost. So, all right. Here is probably the most useful item that I can offer you from a gardening data-driven research perspective to help you understand your loss. Because this is one of the questions that I get all the time is, well, at what temperature does this happen? So first, I want you to pay attention to the pictures across the top. And I'll show you for apples and pears here. And I got 2 more slides that are going to show you some other fruit. But we're going to talk about apples mainly, because we grow apples, we grow pears, and we grow peaches. But apples is what we grow the most of. And we talk about them in terms of where the growth tissue is on the end of the bud and then the bloom. So the picture that's on the far left of your screen that says silver tip, that's the fuzzy silver picture that I showed you. Then we see green tip. That's the other picture that I showed you. So those are the first 2 stages. And then we're going to go to half-inch green, which means that there's more of that leaf edge showing. Then we're going to go to tight cluster. In tight cluster, we're talking about the bloom. They're all tightly held together at the base of the flower. And then you're going to go to first pink. That's where the flower starts to show. Full pink, that meaning the whole flower exterior petals are exposed. First bloom, that's when the bloom goes from here to being open. Full bloom is not how open the flower is. Full bloom is how much of the tree is in bloom. So first bloom is when we see about 1% or 25% of the tree blooming. Full bloom is all of the blooms on the tree are open, and that's the difference there. Then your last one is post bloom. We'll call that petal drop a lot of times. That's where the flower has done its job, we hope, and the petals all drop off, and then we go to fruit set. And then I'll show you some pictures of that here in a minute, and what to look for and how to look for some frost damage. So those are the stages we talk about. For pears, we're going to talk about, those scales that I showed you in the picture have started to separate. The bud is exposed. And then you're going to go to tight cluster, first white, full bloom, first bloom, full bloom is going to follow along. You're going to find that there are varieties who move through these stages much faster than others. You're also going to find that some years, based on the amount of degree days that we accumulate, that it can go from first bloom to full bloom in what seems like an afternoon. And sometimes it does happen that way if we're moving along quickly and accumulating degree days quickly. So then underneath the line that has your stage name on it, silver tip, green tip, half-inch green, underneath of that is going to give you 3 numbers. One is the old kill temp. That's the temp we used to work with when we only had 1 number. And I'll explain that here in a minute. But the one that you really need to look at are the bottom 2 numbers where it says 10% kill and 90% kill. So at the silver tip, we're going to lose 15% of the fruit buds at silver tip, and we're going to lose 90% of them at 2 degrees. So at this point, I'm pretty confident we're okay there. The other piece that tells me that I'm okay is that a tree, especially a mature apple tree, is going to produce about 400% of the blossoms that I want to set fruit on that tree. I'm going to say that again. The tree produces about 400% of the blossoms that I actually want to set on that tree. And the reason for that is that the tree's objective and my objective are not the same. The tree wants to produce as many seeds as possible to put as many potential plants, new apple trees, out into the world as possibly. It wants to spread its genetics into the next generation. I want large, juicy, tasty apples. Those are competing interests. The tree wants to make a whole bunch of little golf ball sized apples. I want to make some much smaller number of large, tasty apples. So if some of them get frosted off, that's okay. It's not a problem. We can lose half the apples on that tree and not be frustrated by that. Actually, a killing frost on some of them is a benefit to us because then we don't have to thin, because we do thin the apples in the orchard in order to get high quality hand fruit that we're looking for. All right, so I've talked about a lot there. Let's make sure that there aren't any questions. If there are questions, by all means, put them in the chat. No question is a stupid question. Ask away. Happy to explain what we do or answer questions the best that I can about your specific situation. So I'll wait for Jeff or Courtney to tell me we're clear or we got questions.
Looks good, Clay. They did ask what the name of your orchards are, if you don't mind throwing those. It looks like Courtney put your Slaughter Orchard and Cidery. That's the
Yep.
one in Howard County. What about the one in Bloomington?
So Bloomington is Slaughter Orchard and Cidery.
Oh, gotcha.
That were down there. We started that orchard from the ground up. It was literally a lawn. It was grass when we started, and we dug the holes and planted the trees by hand. And that at that location, we are a fully bonded farm winery, so we make hard cider there as well. And our original business plan was that was what we were going to do. We were going to grow the apples in Bloomington at a small orchard that we couldn't get commercially, so we couldn't buy bitter sharps and bitter sweets. We were going to grow those in Bloomington, and we were going to source all the rest of our apples. We're going to buy them from other orchards to make the base for our hard cider. And then we were buying apples off of Hainland Orchard, which is where I'm currently sitting today in our farm market. And Hainland Orchard, this is our 110th season here at this orchard. We were sourcing apples off of Lynn Hainland. Lynn's been instrumental in getting us successfully off the ground here. I grew up not far from this orchard, so did my wife. We grew up about, 8 or 9 miles from here. My grandparents farmed about a mile and a half, literally down the road. I can see it from here. My great-grandfather and family built the house and barn across the street that we actually rent and use for our production. So we've got deep roots here in Howard County, and Miami County Grant County, all where they come together here in the corner around Converse. And that's how we got connected with Lynn, and we bought ended up buying this orchard from Lynn because Lynn wanted to retire, and his kids didn't want an orchard, and he called me one day and said, "You want to buy an orchard?" Which was not the business plan. This was not the plan at all. But it was either that or it was going to become a cornfield. And probably everybody on this call can think of an orchard that has been in Indiana and is no more, because the list is pretty long. There are a lot of orchards, even in the time we've been doing this, that have been turned into either housing developments or cornfields. And that's a difficult place to be. And the reason is that it takes us a long time to get going as an orchard. We plant trees and we don't see fruit returns. At a minimum, with a high density orchard, you're looking for 3 to 5 years. At a large orchard like us, you're looking at 5 to 7 years before we get a paycheck. So when somebody says they're going to bulldoze an orchard, it's a big deal for us. So yeah,
That
Bloomington, Slaughter Orchard and Cidery. Here, Hainland Orchard, we're all the same entity, same apples. They go back and forth. But yeah, that's up here is where we grow our culinary and dessert fruit. We grow sweet corn, ornamental corn, pumpkin, squash, gourds. We have beehives here that we partner with the local apiary club, and they've got beehives out here. We have a native pollinator habitat that we're in the process of putting in. We are planting a sugar bush here real soon. So we got a lot of fun things going on up here. We got a lot of room and space to do those creative things. In Bloomington, we're much more hemmed in and geographically, sort of fenced in. We don't have a lot of space down there, and we try and grow as many of those bitter sharps and bitter sweets, the specialty apples that most people have never heard of, for making hard cider.
No, that's all good. I have to ask, and I'm sorry, Courtney, bear with me, but did you ever hear the joke, when's the best time to plant an orchard?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the punchline. I know what they always say for us.
10 years ago.
That's right. That's right. That's the
So
best time.
when you inherited the 100+ year orchard, I mean, you were sitting pretty good. We did have a question in the chat box about is there anything you can do if there's a freeze? What sort of management things? Is there anything available to you? And the other
Hold that.
question was, is your market in Howard County open right now?
So, first answer, we're going to get a slide to that here in a minute, and I'm going to give you an answer that you're probably not going to like. But yes, we have a whole slide dedicated to frost here in just a minute, and we're going to talk about that. So I'll get to that one. Is the a market open here? We are open here by appointment only in Howard County. Feel free to give us a call, leave a message. Most of the folks that are here every day, we've got two guys that are here pruning. David Horner is our orchard manager, and Chandler Sonafrank, who's our assistant manager. Those two guys do an amazing job, immense amounts of work. And as you might guess, an orchard that is 110 years old requires a lot of maintenance. And unfortunately, we picked up this orchard when we bought it. It was in disrepair. It needed a lot of work. Lynn had been doing it by himself for about a decade. And we're still digging out of that hole, but we've made huge progress rather. And in large part, that's due to David and Chandler, who have done amazing jobs. Some of you may know those guys if you're up here in this area. But yeah, they do amazing work. But if you call, leave us a message. We'll figure out a time for you to come out here. We do have frozen cider available for sale still. We have maple syrup. We have jams and jellies, some of those non-perishable items. Our apple butter, because we make apple butter with our apples, and applesauce and cinnamon applesauce. So, yep. You can give us a call. In Bloomington, we're also open by appointment, but we will be open one day a week after spring break. So here in a couple of weeks, we'll be open on Thursdays for you to stop by there. So anything else? I'm going to plow on forward.
I think we're looking good to plow forward.
All righty. So the process here on this table works the same. I'm going to show you a couple more. You can see the link down at the bottom, the URL. It'll take you there. That is from Michigan State University. They do some great work up there. And here is the same table for apricots, peaches, and plums. We do grow peaches, so I'll talk for just a minute about those. One of the peaches is sort of a gamble, if you will, and that's a lot of times attributed, incorrectly attributed to the fact that we get a late frost. And while the peach tree is susceptible to a late frost. If you look at those temperatures aren't wildly off of where the apples are. The real problem that we have with peaches is not right now getting cold. It was that really, really cold snap that we had in January. It's the December and January timeframe when it gets really, really cold and stays cold for a long time. It kills those buds. Those buds are just simply not as cold hardy over the winter as an apple tree bud is. And what happens is they get cold and they dry out. So that's where that loss occurs. So folks think, oh, it hurt. We got a late frost and it hurt our peach crop. Maybe, but most likely your peach crop was affected back in December and January. And, when it was -5 and stayed there for 2 weeks in that 0, -5 range, that's when your peach tree probably lost all of its buds. It didn't lose them in late March, early April when it got cold, or at least it didn't lose them all. Most likely. I'm going to say that that's a definite, but most likely. Again, this is all part of one PDF. I'm just showing you a page at a time. And then here it is for cherries, both sweet cherries and tart cherries. And it gives pictures of those progression of the development and the temperatures at which you're looking at some loss. Here's also where the note is about that old standard temperature for those of you that have been wondering what that first line was for. And that is the lowest temperature that can be endured for 30 minutes without damage. So that's that part that I said at the beginning. You got 30 minutes before damage starts to occur. That's that number where we start to get damage. And then your other two are probably a better number for percent kill. So 10% kill of the bud and 90% kill and the temperatures there. So if you're looking for other fruit tree items, I highly recommend the MSU materials. They have some great material there. And this chart, if anything, is a good way to sort of put your mind at ease that you're probably not going to lose all of your crop at once. And we all have to be reminded of that. Even I do. Sometimes you look at the forecast and you're like, oh my goodness, we're going to lose everything. Well, no, probably not. All right, so these are available. Take a look at them for the crop that you're growing, and we'll move on. So frost, the question about frost. I love the quote that I've got at the top of the page. The best frost protection is another blanket on the bed. That's from a friend of ours, Aaron Sturgis, Sturgis Orchards in Pittsburgh. I'm not sure where Aaron got it, but Aaron says it all the time. And Aaron has forgotten more about orcharding than I'll ever know. And the basic sentiment here is you can do all you want to try and prevent frosts, but you're probably not going to have much success. Are there ways to do it? There sure are. We've all covered a tree with a blanket or a sheet. You can buy yourself a couple degrees, maybe, depending on the location and how much wind you've got and those types of things. You've seen commercial orchards that have wind turbines move the wind. You see commercial orchards who will spray water onto the crop continuously, and that evaporation and freezing will protect the crop. Again, we're talking about buying ourselves a couple degrees, but those are really the irrigation and the wind turbines are really, really expensive items, and it takes a huge fan to make that work. You may have seen pictures of the pots, the smut pots that they put the oil into and they burn. A lot of times you see those associated historically with vineyards, and they produce and belch out this big black smoke, and they'll do warm the orchard. You can buy yourself a couple degrees there. But all of those options have trade-offs. They are expensive. They are time consuming. They're going to require your attention in the middle of the night. If it's one that's active, like the pots or the fans or the irrigation. So is there something you can do for frost protection? For a home gardener, you're looking at trying to cover it with a sheet, but when you get to the size of a tree, you're probably not going to have much luck. If you've got a dwarf tree, you might be able to, but then again, you've got to keep that tree on, and the sheet on the tree, and you've got to do all those things. So what is our frost prevention method? Another blanket on the bed. There's nothing that we do to help with with frost and preventing frost damage. And like I said, that tree is going to produce 400% of what we need in terms of blooms. So we're going to thank the tree for doing some thinning on its own, and then we don't have to thin those because we do come back through and chemically thin. So we spray a little less NAA and we do a lot less thinning then, because frost has already done that. So there's the answer to the frost question that I know is not satisfactory to a lot of people because they want to do something, and there's not a lot you can do to solve that problem. If you're growing things closer to the ground, there's a lot of, we can talk about low tunnels, we can talk about stuff like that that can protect frost. But when we're talking fruit trees, you don't have a lot of options. So what I want to talk about here is in these pictures is how to know that you've got frost damage and what it looks like if it matures into an apple. So the picture on the right is a cross section of the mature fertilized ovary that turns into an apple, and the one with the red arrow is one that will die and fall off. So that brown tissue there is dead tissue from frost damage, and it's going to fall off the tree. The one that has the green arrow to it and the one to the left of the one with the green arrow are most likely going to mature into apples, and you're going to have fully developed apples there. So apples come in a cluster of 5. Here you've lost 3 of the 5. You're going to be left with 2. That's perfect. That's a great place to be. Some people want to be left with 1. So we're in a good place there. But that's a great way to say, okay, it got cold a couple nights ago after we had fruit set. What do I need to look for? And this is a way to do that. You go out there with a sharp knife, you cut that, the flower, at the base of the flower. You're going to cut that bulb in half this way, and then you're going to look at the inside to see if you see the brown dead tissue. And then the 2 apples that will develop from the picture on the right, the ones that are green on the interior, if those develop fully, you don't see it all the time, but you might see what's in the picture on the left after they've fully matured. And that is called a frost ring. And that is where it got damaged in the frost, but it didn't kill it. It wasn't killing, it was just damaging, and you get that frost ring. So from a sales perspective, we got less money involved. We're going to get less out of that. Those are probably going to become juice apples. But if you see those at your local orchard, they are fine to eat. I promise you, the Orchardist is not trying to sell you something that is not tasty or is a problem. That is a cosmetic issue on the outside of the skin caused by the frost that creates that frost ring. And if you think about how that grows, that part that's the ring was the outside of the tissue when it was real small, like the picture on the right. So that's how to know that you've got frost damage, and that's what it's going to look like if it reaches maturity with the damage, is the picture on the left. Okay, questions at this point?
I think we're doing good. There was a question, when will your cider be available?
We press enough cider in the fall that we freeze it. Cider freezes just fine. And we are selling that cider right now as frozen cider, and we'll continue to sell that through spring, summer, and August. And then we start pressing the new cider right at Labor Day. So it just depends on how fast harvest comes in. This is a great time for me to plug a little educational lesson about cider. I know it's not directly trees, but the product of trees. If you come by cider from any orchard in August in Indiana, and they're pressing it with current apples that they've picked, that cider is most likely going to be thin and tart. So if you drink it, know you're going to get thin and tart cider because that's the apples that are currently available in the orchard. As a big sweeping statement, apples tend to get sweeter as we go through the year. It's not 100%, but a lot of times. And the cider that we press at the orchard will get thicker and sweeter as we go through the year. So the cider that we make in August, if we made it, we don't. If we made it in August, would taste nothing like the cider in October. And even September, the 1st of September, to that October, November pressings are nowhere remotely close to the same. The late season cider is going to be thicker and sweeter. Just know that if you come early, you're going to get thinner and tartar cider. There's nothing wrong with it. Your orchardist is not trying to cause you a problem. They are pressing cider out of what the orchard is providing at that time. So yeah, that's the long answer about the cider and why it varies. So a lot of people come and buy our frozen cider in August, and then they buy the first pressing in September, and they're like, "Oh, this isn't near the same." Well, that's because the frozen cider you were buying was from last October, November time frame, and it's super sweet. So that's the long answer to that question.
No, that's good. And for what a master gardener had asked that question, and Clay, don't be surprised if you get a request to host a tour in person here at some point, because I know we're getting the virtual, but we do know that you give good tours out there with master gardener level education. So, don't be surprised. It's probably Courtney that'll reach out to you, but we'll get something around.
Yeah, we love to give tours. A lot of what we do, we say, is agroeducation. You can go places to get agritourism. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a great business model. But you're not going to find a bounce house here. But you are going to find a tour where we want you to know more about your food when you go home than you knew when you got here, and that's what we're aiming to do. So,
Yep.
yeah, by all
All
means,
good.
if somebody wants a tour for doesn't have to be master gardeners. We've got a Jeep club that comes out here and does a cider tasting and things like that. So it could be any group you're associated with. We do field trips. We just ask that you call us ahead of time so we can get them scheduled. Don't drop in and be like, hey, we want a tour. That doesn't always work so well. So, all right. Any other questions at this point?
I think we're looking good. Sorry, Julie, no bounce houses, but education all the way. So you're good to
That's
keep
right.
going.
So it happens when you got a guy who was teaching class before he came here. So so let's imagine that you got through frost and you have some fruit. This is what your fruit's going to look like. So if you can see the apple, these are all pictures from our orchards. If you see the picture on the left, that is from a technical standpoint, the mature fertilized swollen ovary. That's that ball that still has the remnants of the flower on the top of it, and that's what will become the apple. So just a little side note, neat item. If you see pictures of apples from elsewhere in the world that have been drawn, they will be drawn from our perspective in the United States, from what we're used to, upside down. Because when they grow on the tree, they literally grow that direction. The flower is on the top, which is what we call the bottom of the apple. We're most of the time in the US. And the stem, which is the part here that I'm representing with my hand, that's in the picture, that is where it is. And what happens is that apple grows and gets bigger and bigger. The weight of the apple turns and it hangs upside down on the tree when it's ripe and we go to pick it. But right now in the spring, those are all going to be upright like that because the flower is going to be on top. So that's the apple. The peach is going to have a much smaller stem, which I think you're all used to. It's pretty short, grows right up against the branch, and that's the peach that's maturing there. And then you see the pear again with the remnants of the flower on the top of it. The stamens are there, the petals are all gone, and you see that stem end that's going down and hooking it to the tree. Interesting fact about pears, some apples, but a lot of times with pears, that stem can be pretty long, and a lot of folks will cut those when they harvest them off the tree rather than pulling them off the tree because they can be pretty large. But that's there. So here's our goal. If we make it through frost, this is what we're going to see when we get there. All right, so that gets us through frost and sort of the frost questions. And so now I'm going to talk a little bit about pruning and where we are with pruning. This is another question. We just had a pruning workshop at the Bloomington Orchard. And I think one of the number one questions that I get, or statements that I'm told, is pruning is scary, or I'm not sure what to prune, or I'm afraid I'm going to hurt the tree, something of that sentiment. The answer is you're probably not going to hurt the tree. unless you make a horizontal pruning cut 6 inches off the ground, you're not gonna hurt it for the most part. You may not get as many apples this year, but pruning is really healthy for the tree. Apple trees in general tend to be biennial, so they're going to make apples this year, and they're not going to make as many next year. They'll make some, but not as many, and then they'll make more apples again on year 3. One of the ways to combat that is pruning. Cutting the tree, taking back some of that woody tissue. So for beginners who may not be as comfortable pruning, here are some recommendations on how to get started. Start with the easy stuff. Yes, you still have time to prune in this season. You can prune all the way up until you've got blossoms. I would stop when you get to blossoms or a little bit before, but you still have time to prune. And the best pruning is what you get done. Don't be paralyzed that you don't do any pruning because you're not sure what to do. Go ahead and prune your tree. Your tree will thank you for it later. And where to start? Start with things like the broken wood. That's the picture on the left. If the tree has a wound from the fact that it had too much weight on a branch and too many apples last year and it broke, or the fact that it broke in a windstorm, or the fact that you caught it with the lawnmower and you ripped a branch around and you broke it, any of those kinds of things, whether it's mechanical damage or it's weather damage or it's any other kind of damage where the outer bark has been compromised of the tree, start there, cut that off. The second is to cut off things that are touching. So you see in the picture on the right, there's 2 branches there, and they come up and they rub against each other. Those are going to create a wound as well. They're going to create an open spot in the bark, and that wound is where disease enters, and that's what we're trying to get rid of. So if it's crossing or rubbing limbs, get rid of those. And then the big thing that I want to tell you is, when in doubt, cut it out. And I was looking for a picture of our black Oxford that we've got in Bloomington, and I couldn't find one that we had. But these are the places to start. Start with broken branches, start with crossed branches, start with things like that, and then move out from there. The tree would like to be thinner in terms of its branches than you may like. It hurts us as people. We go to think we personify the tree and we think we're hurting it by pruning it. I promise you we're not. Go ahead and prune it. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The biggest one is disease control. When you open up the tree and you get more airflow through the branches, you're going to have less disease pressure. So that's item number 1. Item number 2 is you're going to thin the crop load that's on it. So you're going to have less apples because you took out some of those branches that are going to be apple bearing or fruit bearing of any kind, peaches or what have you. You're also going to preserve that branch that's still there. You have less weight on it, which causes less potential for breakage, which is that picture on the left. That branch just got too heavy and broke off because there was too much weight, too much wood and fruit on out there, and it just couldn't support itself, and it snapped off. So you're gonna have less disease pressure. You're gonna have less future breakage. You're gonna have less excess crop. The other thing is that if you choose to spray your orchard, you're gonna have better spray penetration. You're gonna get those chemicals, whatever they are, whether they're organic chemicals or synthetic. Either way, you're gonna get them into the tree where they need to be, and that's one of the big things that you're gonna get by pruning. Is your tree going to be pruned perfectly? Probably not. I know ours are not always pruned perfectly, and that's okay. The best pruning is what you get done. Any pruning is better than no pruning at all. And if you've got a big tree, like we've got lots of big trees, we grow full-size trees, you're not going to do all that pruning in 1 year. You're going to do that pruning to bring that tree back into control over a series of several years. Think 3, 4, 5 years or more to get that tree back into the shape that you want it to be in. It's not immediate gratification. If you do that with a tree, if you cut it real hard in the winter right now, and when it's in dormancy or coming out of dormancy, the tree will respond by making a lot of vegetative growth, a lot of new branches, and not a lot of fruit. And you're not looking for that either. So you want to prune some, but don't, if you got a big old tree, don't think you're going to make it look perfect overnight or in one season. If you do that, it's really hard on the tree, and the tree is not going to give you any apples. You are going to be disappointed. So think of it more as a phased approach. We're gonna bring it in a little bit at a time in order to prune that. The other thing that I would tell you is that the phrase that I use all the time with folks is when in doubt, cut it out. If you're not sure, get rid of it. Go ahead and cut it out. If you've got diseased wood, which is also a little hard to know without some more education that we don't have time for today. If you know you've got diseased wood, you want to make sure you're cutting it out too, but don't throw it on your orchard floor. Make sure that you're taking that diseased wood and you're taking it to the burn pile and you're burning it, or you're getting rid of it at some time. Your mostly master gardeners resist the urge to put it in your compost pile. Let me say that again. Do not put the diseased wood in your compost pile. You will simply spread the disease. I know you turn your compost pile. I know you think it gets hot enough. I know you think it will be okay. You're lying to yourself. Don't do that. It will spread, and you will be the responsible party for spreading it. Build yourself a little campfire if you're someplace where you can do that, and burn those diseased branches. You'll save yourself a lot of future work. If you can't do that, figure out how you can get rid of them, especially when you're working with things like fire blight or other diseases that spread well. Don't just throw them on the orchard floor. So there's my little PSA about pruning and cleanliness. All right, let's stop right there for just a second and see if we got questions about pruning, which inevitably we do.
Nothing on the docket.
Okay.
But yeah, good information on the pruning. I know I did when I did some pruning, and I've talked to other people. It's the biggest issue I've seen with folks in the home gardens is when they don't prune for the 4 or 5 years and they have to make those big cuts. The other thing I've seen is where they don't prune enough. Like you said, I like that if when in doubt, cut it out. Because I remember teaching something. It's like, well, it's like a recipe. You can always cut more off, but you can't put it back once it's off. So I know there's a hesitation there, but. No, that's good information with the pruning. And then airflow, is that something that you're looking at too with pruning? Is that a concern? I might have missed it there.
Yeah, that's one of our number one reasons for pruning is that we're going to get better airflow through the tree, which is going to give us less disease pressure because the inside of that tree is going to dry out when the wind blows. When the wind can't blow through the tree when it's got leaves on it, you get that disease pressure on the inside, and you're going to get the diseases that we have the biggest problem with in Indiana: apple scab, and then later in the summer you're going to get sooty blotch and fly speck. I mean, those are welcome to Indiana. It's hot and humid here. Other places don't have that problem because it dries out much faster and they have a far lower fungal pressure than we've got. We have hot and humid, and fungus loves that. So you're going to constantly fight some of those problems. Can you get rid of them? You can, but it takes a lot of attention and attention year after year after year to maintain that cleanliness. But you can, but don't expect it. So yeah, airflow is big.
And then we did have a couple other things. Do regular apple trees get the water sprouts? And then the name of your hard ciders.
Yeah, name of the hard cider. It's Slaughter Orchard and Cidery is the name of the hard cider, and then we are not super wild and fanciful on our naming. We try and name it for what it is, just like you do with wine. A Merlot wine is Merlot because it comes from Merlot grapes. We sell a lot of single varietal hard cider. Our single varietal King David comes from a King David apple. Our single varietal Macintosh comes from our Macintosh apples. We also do a bourbon barrel aged cider that's aged in a bourbon barrel. We have some other varieties that we've done over time. Sweet One, Ground Harvest was our USDA grant that we just finished. We're making cider from. So yeah, that's the cider. What was the other question? It was
Water sprouts.
Water sprouts. Yep, they're gonna get water sprouts. You're just gonna cut them off. So you cut off the water sprouts when you get them. If they're at the top of the tree, you're going to want to cut them off. But water sprouts are going to be a result of, when you prune, you're going to get them. The tree is going to grow those back, and you're going to keep cutting them off. So, yeah.
Yep, that looks like that covers most of the questions there in the chat box. Yep, we're good.
All right. So I'm going to talk really about FAQs on the next two topics because we don't have a lot of time, but I want to cover the things we get asked the most. Planting trees right now. Yes, you can plant your trees in the spring. Yes, you can still order them. Find a reputable nursery and purchase trees from them. Make sure you know the size of the tree when you buy them. That's the pick the tree size that meets your needs. Please, please, please go to wherever you're going to plant the tree and envision what the tree will look like when it's full grown. Not what it looks like today. I know it's a stick today, but it will become a tree. And when it does, it will be much, much larger. Don't forget to look up. Don't plant it directly under the power lines and then become grumpy when the power company wants to trim the center out of your apple tree. That will happen. Don't plant right next to the sidewalk and then wonder why the apples drop onto the sidewalk. Do think about where it's going to be and pick a tree that meets that size. Apple trees come in a variety of sizes, dwarf, semi-dwarf, semi-standard, and standard. A standard size apple tree is huge. A dwarf tree is going to be much, much smaller. Pick one that meets your needs. If it doesn't have a size when you buy it, you shouldn't buy it. Don't buy an apple tree that does not tell you whether it's going to be dwarf, semi-dwarf, semi-standard, or standard. Don't do that because you're probably going to get a giant tree and you're going to be frustrated with it because you can't pick it without a ladder and it's going to be much larger than you're expecting it to be. So measured out when it's full grown. Dig the planting hole bigger than you think it needs to be. If you're not planting a whole bunch of trees, this is a great place to put in a little bit of extra effort and it will pay you big dividends. Think about 2 feet wide and 2 to 3 feet deep if you're going to plant it for home use. And yeah, a little stick that you're going to put in there and you're going to be thinking, why am I digging this 2 foot deep hole? You're doing that because you're trying to break that soil up so that those roots can grow quickly into that soil that may be compacted and can gather those nutrients and grow quickly. So you're giving that tree a head start. You're asking it to do a lot. Give it the extra hour that it needs to dig that hole and give it a great start. And don't backfill that hole with compost. That's another one of the FAQs at this point when planting that we get. That's like giving a toddler candy. Don't do that. It'll become root bound. The roots won't want to grow out into the rest of the soil. If you want to put a little compost in there, great. Don't backfill with compost all the way. Your tree is not going to like that. When you put the tree up, some of them are going to be self-supporting. Others are going to say they need a stake. You need to pay attention to what it says on the tag or what the variety information you've got out of the extension bulletin. And then you're also going to need to think about, do you have deer pressure? That's the picture there. You got to figure out how you're going to keep the deer away. You can see two items there that we use. One is the tree cone that's in the background, which is that white cylinder that's over a tree. And then you can see the cage that we tried. We tried several varieties there in that planting, and how we kept the deer away from the tree. That orchard, we did not do any deer control in the beginning, and it created incredible amounts of problems. So that's what you see there for our planting and deer protection. So yes, you've got time to plant trees right now. You can plant trees for another couple months, but know that once they've got leaves on them, which you can do, you can plant them, but you're asking an awful lot of that tree, and it's going to be a whole lot more stressed than if you plant bare root trees that don't have any leaves on them. So that's the quick flyover of the FAQs for planting right now. Questions there?
You kind of answered the how late into spring can you plant? You just kind of answered that with those bare root trees. And then I know Purdue Extension cannot recommend necessarily specific nurseries, but how would you choose? The question was, do you have a nursery you'd recommend buying from? I'm more of a looking at the specimen itself kind of guy as opposed to the nursery.
So two things about the nursery that you're going to want to see. Are they in the business of selling fruit trees? That's one of the number ones that I ask about. Do you sell fruit trees, or are you a general purpose nursery that sells to a bunch of landscapers? I personally, I'm not making a recommendation, but personally, I stay away from those nurseries for the purposes of buying fruit trees. I want to buy fruit trees off of a nursery that specializes in fruit tree sales, because they're going to pay attention to what I need as a fruit tree purchaser. Second, I'm going to say, can I get the tree that I want? And we plant a lot of varieties that are specialty varieties. So I'm looking for a specific type of tree. The other item is, can I get the tree in the size that I want? Trees come graded by the stem diameter. How big is it? Am I buying a tree that's as big around as my pinky, or am I buying a tree that's as big around as my wrist? A lot of the trees are going to be between my pinky and my thumb in size. You're going to pay for the larger trees. You're going to pay more for them. But if you're trying to get a tree started, those bigger trees will, from our perspective, start and grow better. We have a much better success rate when we spend a little bit of extra money and we buy the tree in a larger size. I can tell you where we've bought trees from, and I'm happy to share that. I put it out there all the time. We've bought trees from Cummins Nursery in New York. Upstate New York. Cummins has a lot of varieties. They have a lot of specialty stuff that you're not going to find anywhere else. So if you're looking to buy a quince, you're going to have to buy it from Cummins. If you're looking to buy fruit trees, peach trees, places like that, we buy a lot of those from Adams County Nursery in Adams County, Pennsylvania. And they have great customer service. Both of those nurseries do. And so we get them from Adams County. And then our rootstock, we have been buying from Willamette out in the Pacific Northwest, Willamette Nurseries, and that's where we buy our rootstock. We are going to start growing our own rootstock here in the near future in our hoop house. So we're going to bring that rootstock production in-house. Excuse me. So yeah, those are the places I can tell you that we've bought from, but a lot of that is driven by the fact that we're buying specialty trees, and we're buying a lot of them. So we're hundreds of trees at a time. So
Looks good. Right. Yep, chat box looks good.
Okay, I'm going to go to spraying, and then we can get to some more questions. Spraying is one of them that I also give out some unsatisfactory answers to most people. I cannot make a spray plan for your situation. There are so many factors here. I can't tell you, go to the big box store, buy X, spray it on your orchard, your problems will all be solved. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot of questions, big questions, and I can walk you through what we do and the big questions that we answer to how we make our spray plan. We do integrated pest management. We try and be as respectful to those honeybees that you see out there and you see in that picture. We don't spray insecticide when we're in pollination. We try and only spray when we have a need that we're trying to address. And we try and be as eco-friendly as we can to the orchard. This orchard was managed as a conventional orchard for years. We are moving in the direction of softer chemicals, low spray, no spray. Bloomington is low spray, no spray. We have removed all of the restricted use pesticides from our arsenal. We don't use any of those anymore to control things. And we try and trap to see what our moth problem is, if we've got one, and figure out what we're spraying for and spray at the right time to make sure that the chemicals that we do apply are most effective. So that's us. That's integrated pest management that we're doing. We are big into conservation and trying to be respectful of Mother Nature here in the orchard. So the big steps that I would ask you if you came to me and said, hey, I need to spray, or you think you need to spray, is what is it that you need to control? What are you trying to control? Don't spray something that's for fungicide if what you really need to control is a moth. Won't work. You're wasting your time and money, and you're putting a lot of chemical out there that you don't need to. Second is, once you know what you want to control, how are you going to control it? Are you going to be all organic? Are you going to be all synthetic? Are you going to do a mix of the two? Does it matter to you? Is price important? Because those are going to come different price points. Organic does not mean less spray. That's another thing about fruit trees. Organic and fruit trees typically means more sprays. We've got friends who run an organic cider orchard, and they spray a lot. But they spray different kinds of chemicals that typically have lower efficacy and definitely lower duration that they act on. So they do have to spray quite a bit. The third is that when you go to apply it, follow the label. The label is the law, and you need to follow that label even as a homeowner. You need to read it. You need to apply it as it's expected to control whatever it is that you're trying to control. We'll start spraying in the next few weeks, which most people don't realize. We'll spray copper and then dormant oil, both organic sprays, but we'll do that to set ourselves up for getting rid of some fungus that's overwintered in the orchard and getting rid of any scales that we might have. The two things that we're trying to get rid of here early. So that's what we do for spraying and sort of the pushing you in the right direction for spray, but I can't make a spray plan for you. So that's spraying.
We
All
did
right.
have a question on
Yep.
Japanese beetles on a peach tree.
Those Japanese beetles are not hurting that tree as much as you think they are. I promise. Yes, they will eat the fruit. Typically, it's only fruit that already has a wound on it and is open. And I know it's really scary when you see those 100 Japanese beetles all condescend on the same, like on that peach or that apple, and it looks like they just turned into a giant Japanese beetle trap. But it's really not going to hurt all that fruit, especially if you've got a big tree. We do spray once for Japanese beetles as part of it. It's in our spray routine, and we try to wait until we've gotten to the point that the Japanese beetles are literally skeletonizing the leaves on the top of the tree. So we're at the max Japanese beetle population, and we spray once to get rid of those. You have to think about whether or not you want to spend the time, the money, and to get rid of those Japanese beetles, or if you can live with it. The tree can live without some leaves. You might get some fruit loss. You might not. But yes, you can spray to get rid of them. We do. We spray once, and we do it at the peak of Japanese beetle population. We don't do it when we first see them, which, as a just practical measure, means after the guys have sprayed the soybeans in northern Indiana and all the Japanese beetles moved out of the soybean fields and into the orchard, then we spray.
We did have another question about leaf curl on their peach tree for 2 years in a row. Without pictures, that's kind of a hard one to identify. I know when we have issues with trees on the extension level, we will send samples to the Purdue Pesticide and Disease Lab, so that's always an option. But didn't know if you had any insight, Clay, on the leaf curl with peach trees.
So my recommendation for home gardeners is always start at your county extension agent and take good quality pictures, top of the leaf, bottom of the leaf, the whole tree, the branch, wherever you think there's a problem, and then decide how much time and energy you want to spend to solve the problem. And get a hold of them, see what you can do, and try and diagnose it. That is stage one. That's back to the slide for spraying. This is what do you want to control? If you don't know what you're controlling, you can't control it. You can just guess, which is a bit of a shotgun approach, which for us would be really expensive. So figure out what you want to control, figure out how you want to control it. Some things for a tree are controlled by better nutrients. When the tree is in a better health, it doesn't get disease. Sometimes it's better pruning that will help you, get spray in and get airflow through them. Unfortunately for peach trees are wimps. And I have no other better way to say it. Peach trees in Indiana die, and they die frequently. We expect that if we get 7 to 8 years out of a peach tree, we're doing great. Because peach trees don't like to be cold, they don't like to be wet, they don't like disease, they don't like lots of things, and then they get some winter damage, and then inevitably the canker will come in, and that's that gooey stuff that comes out of the tree trunk, and then people come to me and they bring me a picture of it, and they say, what do I do to solve this? And I say, cut that tree off at the ground, or just let it keep making peaches until it gives up and keep planting other trees. That's what we do. We will plant peach trees on a rotation every year, just knowing that keeping them alive for a long term, like an apple tree. I mean, apple trees we keep alive for 50, 70 years here because we grow full-size trees. You're not going to get that with a peach tree. Just it's not going to happen in Indiana today. You can spray a lot of chemical and still have peach canker, and you're not going to get away with it. So yeah, sorry to be the bearer of bad news.
Well, sometimes honesty, you have to. I put in the chat box. There's no silver bullets a lot of times. It's always a program and long term sort of thing. We did have a question come in. Squirrels get to our fruit before we do, even before it's ripe. Any thoughts on how to beat them to the fruit?
Depends on where you live and how many squirrels you have. If you've got a bunch of squirrels, yeah, our market's open and you can come buy fruit. I know that doesn't sound great, but at some point, Mother Nature will beat you to the punch every single time. We have a problem with rabbits in the orchard. Not as much squirrels, but rabbits to some. We have a problem with deer in the Bloomington orchard. And the best thing that we've got to solve that problem, and we've got the ultrasonic flashing lights, and we've got all those kinds of things. But the best, and we've tried, hair and, get it from the barber and spread it out and dog hair. We've tried all those things, not without a whole lot of success. Um, get a dog. That's our magic bullet. If you want a silver bullet for what we've done, get a dog. Preferably one that loves to chase things. We have an Australian Shepherd. She thinks that everything that runs is just a self-propelled ball, and she thinks that that's wonderful. And she'll chase anything that moves in the orchard. And so that's our we have a dog and she chases a lot of things and keeps populations in check. The other thing that we do is we spray liquid fence, rabbit, and deer repellent in the orchard, and we follow the label religiously. Once we spray it, we put the next sprays that it says on the label on the calendar so that we can hit those. It stinks. It reeks something fierce. If you get it on your shoes, kiss your shoes goodbye. It's not going to go away. But we do that, and we have had great success keeping the deer and the rabbits at bay. We did lose a lot of trees before we started that process, and we're in a lot better shape now that we use it. Um, so yeah.
Please tell me the dog's name is not Silver Bullet.
No, her name is
Gotcha.
Lizzie, and Lizzie
Lizzie.
loves to chase things in the orchard.
Awesome. I did throw in the chat box the post-program survey. That helps us with our Purdue reporting. If you guys don't mind filling that out. Clay, if you can stick around for a bit. There was another good question that came up. Just some common diseases. I know we could talk an entire day on diseases, but are there maybe a couple big ones you could name just so that we have it kind of out in the air?
Sure. If you're going to grow apples in Indiana, and I'm talking apples here, you're going to get some of the same diseases in other fruits. I know I've been very apple centric because that's a lot of what we grow. You're going to get scab. Scab is a huge one. It is our number one disease pressure. You're going to get the potential for fire blight. Fire blight is not a fungus. So scab is over here as a fungus. Fire blight is a bacteria. It grows in the cambium layer of the tissue. It will enter through a wound in the tree. And a lot of times that wound is the blossom. Don't forget that a blossom is a wound in the tree. It is an open hole where bacteria can enter the tree. That bacteria will spread into the tip. You get tip blight, and it starts to curl. Looks like a shepherd's hook. It curls around like this, and then it'll work its way all the way back the stem, and eventually it'll get to the trunk. And if you don't get it pruned out before it gets to the trunk, it will kill the whole tree. Fire blight is a serious issue, and if you get fire blight or think you have fire blight, you need to educate yourself on how to control it. There are some things that you can spray to help with that. Some organic, some non-organic. Both are available. But you do need to think about some serious pruning, and you need to think about sanitation for both your pruners and the clippings, because fire blight can spread pretty rapidly. So fire blight and scab are two of the big ones. You're going to see some peach tree curl. You're going to get some other funguses there. In the summer, there'll be some things that they lump together in the literature, and they're going to call them like summer rot, which is a big group of fungus that all look and act the same. For most people's purposes, it's all one and the same, and there's some fungicide that's going to help with that. Organic and synthetic, both available to folks. But yeah, you're gonna see that rot. You've all seen an apple hanging on the tree, and the bottom of it looks like it's rotten out. So you're gonna see that come as well. treatments are the same. Those are the big things that you're going to get. Insects, in terms of insect damage, your top three are going to be codling moths and oriental fruit moths, say OFM in some of the literature, or plum curculios. Those are going to be your, which is a weevil similar to the boll weevil that grows in cotton.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to stop recording, so thank you, Clay. I do think